Welcome to another edition of FACETS TV. I'm your host, Paula Goldman. It's good to be with you. Today, we are launching our first program in English, and this program is going to cover some aspects related to the elections 2012. Let's begin. In these upcoming elections, there are several important issues that will impact our communities and how we vote for the candidates. Their views and opinions on what is best for our state and country will impact your life in a major way. FACETS TV endorses no candidate, but suggests you look at all the candidates and select the one who represents your best interest. So let's look at the serious issues that involve immigrants in Virginia.
The immigrants' population in the state is growing and is diversifying rapidly with over 903,000 foreign-born residents. In a 2010 survey, Virginia was listed with the 9th largest immigrant population in the U.S. That growth was reached between 2000 and 2010. The Commonwealth Virginia's foreign-born grew almost twice as fast as the nation average. According with the Commonwealth Institute for Fiscal Analysis, immigrants are more prosperous and more likely to be business owners. Also, are highly educated in a high-earning workforce. In many areas of employment, immigrants are considered the backbone of a region's economy and economic development and are ranked as a powerhouse of employment potential. While immigrants comprise about 11% of the state population, they represent roughly 17% of its entrepreneurs. It is important to mention that over the 903,000 immigrants, about 630,000 are Latinos, which represents 70% of the total immigrants population of the state.
So, keeping this in mind, in this election, this population will be a real force that can change the course of who is going to win the White House and who will better represent the Hispanics' common interest and goals. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more FACETS TV. Welcome back to this special edition of FACETS TV. Let's see what some candidates said about the Hispanic participation in this election. First, we have Colonel Patrick Murray, who is a 24-year U.S. Army veteran who is making his second run for Congress in Virginia's 8th Congressional District. As an Army officer, he served in numerous tours around the world, first as an armor officer and later as a foreign area officer with the Defense Intelligence Agency. Serving in both war and in peace, Colonel Murray knows that freedom isn't free. We had the chance to speak with him and ask about his opinion of the Hispanic vote in this upcoming election. He told us the following.
Very important. Every single vote is important. But the reason I think the Latino vote is important here, that my district is about 14% Latino, and I think that, again, diversity is our strength. Immigration, our policy is very important, and I want to reach out to everyone, and because we need a big tent. A big tent is what we need for the future of the country.
We also asked him to send a message to the Hispanics electorate.
My background is the military, and I spent over a decade around the world, and I understand that we are a country of immigrants, and I think sometimes people who are born here don't appreciate the fact that diversity is our strength, and that we need to have a good immigration program and policy for this country that builds on our strength, because everyone that comes here is not coming here to do anything but to work hard, put a roof over their head and food on the table, and that's what Republicans are about. So that's my message.
Also, we have Colonel Chris Perkins running for the 11th Congressional District, a retired United States Army officer, former Special Forces, small business owner, and family man who has lived in Northern Virginia since 1991 when not deployed overseas. We asked him for his opinion of the Hispanic vote participation in this coming election, and he said this.
I spent 25 years as a Green Beret in the Army, running around this world in all the very bad places, if you will. And the one thing that when I come home and kiss the ground because I'm an American, I understand that I have a commitment to this country. It is a right to vote that we have got to exercise. We are one of the few countries that can really shape our own destinies through the voting process. The countries I've spent most of my adult life in, you can't do that.
But perhaps one of the most important figures for the state is Governor Tim Kaine, who is running for the U.S. Senate and held a community meeting with women voters. Let's see what issues he is strong on.
Well, let me talk about the vote, and then let me also talk about immigration reform to conclude. So, in the vote, I mean, one of the most magical times of my life and impactful was the time I spent as a missionary in Honduras. And durante mi tiempo allá, yo aprendí bastante de español. Entonces, puedo hablar en comerciales, en estaciones de radio y televisión con los votantes latinos. And I have a whole bunch of. We're very happy that we have a really robust ad campaign up in TV and radio stations, Telemundo, Univision y otros, en periódicos también aquí in Virginia, and we really try to communicate with folks in whatever language they're most comfortable with. There's about 200,000 registered Latino voters in Virginia, and there's a lot more eligible who are not registered, but they often feel like nobody's reaching out to them. So we want to make sure that they know that they're being reached out to, and they're people who really, want their apoyo. So we're working hard on that to men and women to reach out on issues that matter. On the immigration reform issue, I talked earlier about win the talent race, win the economic race. Immigration is fundamentally about talent. Border security, really important. But talent is more important. We want to be the most talented place on earth. And one of the reasons we have been, and one of the reasons we are, and one of the reasons we can continue to be if we get it right, is waves of creative, dedicated, interesting people with new ideas and thoughts who come here to help us succeed. More than 200 of the Fortune 500 CEOs are either first generation or second generation immigrants. And so there's just this wave effect of people like you, who come here and help us, have a wonderful economy. I think there's going to be a moment early in 2013, my belief is, in Congress, where we can do immigration reform. And the three key pieces of it, there's a lot of pieces to it, but the three big ones are, first, the DREAM Act. I'm a huge supporter. We should not, children who are here, who their parents brought them here, we should not lock them into underachievement. We should be promoting them to be overachievers, because if they are, they're going to create opportunities not just for themselves but for a whole lot of other people. And so that's why I support the DREAM Act. And I would vote, it's an executive order now, I would vote to make it a legislative mandate as well. Second, there's a lot of need to do visa reforms so that people, we attract some of the best minds in the world to come into our schools, but then we sort of chase them home even if they want to stay. And again, to create opportunities for themselves or others, we need to do visa reforms to make it easier for folks to stay. The other kind of visa reform we really need, if you are a Brazilian and you want to take a vacation and you want to go to a vacation abroad, it is so much easier to go to Europe than to come to the United States. We make the tourist visa process so difficult to come into this country, and tourism's big business. Tourism is big business, but we have a visa process that makes it much tougher for people to come to this country and spend money than to go elsewhere. We need to fix that. The last part of immigration reform is the tough part, and that is, what about the 10, 11, 12 million people who are here sin documentos, undocumented? What do we do? And my sense is we got to find a compromise, and I think we can. And the basic elements of my compromise, and this is not unique to me, others have put this on the table, is have an opportunity where you basically say to people who are here without documents, here illegally, you got to raise your hand and say, hey, look, I broke the law, I'm here illegally. Because there ought to be a consequence so that the people who did it the right way aren't disadvantaged. Have people acknowledge that they broke the law. And then I'd have a penalty for it. And I'd have a significant financial penalty. And I would have somebody be able to work that penalty and then pay it off over a period of time. And if they worked and they paid it off, then they would be able to get in line and go ahead and get the green card. And we would take the money that people were paying off and we could use that for better border security. So there would be a consequence, but then there would be a path after people, faced up to the consequence, there would be a path to go ahead and get a green card. I think that would be a compromise that that would work for the overwhelming percentage of people who want to see immigration reform. And who wants to see immigration reform? Latinos and other new Americans, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the entire agriculture industry, the entire technology industry. I mean, the group of people who want immigration reform is virtually everybody except people in Congress. And even people in Congress, I predict after this election, people in Congress will realize, hey, we better get serious about this. And I would love to be, one of the voices trying to, we've talked about this for a long time. Let's actually do something about it.
Now, another thing, I'm sure you've been approached about the DREAM project for young Virginians brought to this country illegally, but feel they should have a shot at being an American and finishing education here. What is your stand on this type of legislation?
Soy un gran apoyante del DREAM Act. Entonces, cuando el presidente decidió hace 2 meses arreglar el sistema para los estudiantes, los Dreamers, era una cosa muy, muy buena. And I would support the DREAM Act being passed as a legislative initiative, not simply an executive decision. And so if I go into the Senate, I'm going to do it. And the reason I support it is we would want youngsters here, what I say is we want all youngsters here to be overachievers, to do great things, and then be able to create opportunities for themselves and others. And that's what the DREAM Act would enable folks to do.
Well, we now know some of the candidates in our state, but how big is the Hispanic community in Virginia and what are the issues? In our next segment, we will analyze this. So stay with us and we'll be right back after this important message. This is your program, FACES TV. Thank you for your consideration. In this segment, we are going to talk about the Hispanic population that live in the U.S. The 2010 census has established that the Hispanic population that are living in the U.S. has grown to 50,500,000. But what are the main issues for the Hispanics nationwide? Let's take a look at the economy.
57% of independent Hispanic nationally said spending less to reduce the budget deficit should be a higher priority for the federal government right now. 58% are very concerned about the federal government's current level of spending and debt, while 60% said that stimulus spending is not working and unspent funds should be returned to reduce the deficit. Also, 64% think that the nation's high level of debt is a serious burden that will limit economic growth in this country for our children and grandchildren and must be addressed now. In relationship with the immigration policies, 62% of independent Hispanic nationally said that immigration reform should focus on several items, including securing the border and reforming immigration quotas to meet labor demand. And 57% said that we should consider reform to temporary worker programs based on the needs of those businesses that use these programs. Also, in a 62% opinion, illegal immigrants who have no criminal background and meet strict guidelines like registration, paying a fine, and learning English should be allowed to earn citizenship over the course of several years. Finally, 63% said immigration reform should focus on finding a human approach to dealing with the 12 million immigrants living in the United States, so they can be brought out of the shadows and live without fear of mistreatment.
It is important to mention that these are only some of the issues that matter most to Hispanic voters. Education, health, and working are some of the other important issues. But before that, let's take a break for these important messages. Welcome back to this edition of FACES TV from our studio in Fairfax, Virginia. Let's now look at Hispanic party affiliations that have registered voters, and the numbers are as follows.
Democrats, 51%, 5.6 million. Independents, 31%, 3.4 million. Republicans, 18%, 1.9 million.
As we see, the clear trend is going to the Democrats, but we still have 3.4 million of independents or undecided that may change the face of this election. But let's see what our community have to say about the importance of their vote.
My concern is that immigration aspects of the DREAM Act are huge, so that we can, because it is a full circle issue. We do need to be able to have people educate themselves. They can't stay here and educate themselves and better their lives if that doesn't happen. So I feel very strongly not only about the DREAM Act for men, but specifically females, because all of my assistants are female and they are trying to teach their generation, their children, that education is the key to success.
Essential right here in Virginia, we have the possibility to make a difference. Remember, in Virginia, we represent 5% of the entire people who can vote in Virginia. And right now, the difference is 2%. So if we got on board for President Obama and for Governor Kane, for Senator, we are going to make a difference because we need to pass comprehensive immigration reform. That is the bottom line.
It's important because you have to be part of the United States. Because we have to get together. Doesn't matter if you think that you are Democrat or Republican, you have to be together to do one.
We have to participate, and it's important, otherwise we will not be counted. It's so what to be involved in all these political, democratic issues that come on the table.
I think it is, especially for us Latinos, it's very important to vote because there is a lot at stake.
Well, it's pretty clear that Obama, Kane are the future of Latinos in Virginia and across the U.S. Obama has offered priorities of jobs and the economy as well as immigration reform. Those are just two of the major things that are critical importance to our community. It's time that we stop being the sleeping giant. It's time to get out and make our voices heard. If we don't vote, we don't count.
Pienso y creo que el voto hispano es tan importante como cualquier otro voto. Y lo importante es que nos apoyemos entre nosotros mismos, nosotros los hispanos, no importa de dónde vengamos.
Well, I think that the Latino population right now in Virginia can make a difference in this election because a few votes can change who will be not just the senator. I continue to have the majority of the Senate, but also President Obama.
Well, for Virginia, it's because Virginia can make the difference. It can elect Barack Obama, and it keep our majority in the Senate by electing Tim Kaine. Our vote can make the entire difference. If we don't come out, if we don't vote, we can lose everything.
Our hope is that the Hispanic vote make a big difference and the politicians from both the Democrats and Republicans recognize the importance of our community and pay more attention to our issues and aspirations. With that in mind, let me appeal to those of you who can vote. Please cast your vote on Tuesday, November 6th. Remember, every vote counts. I'm your host, Paula Goldman, and this is FACES TV. Thank you for watching. Until next time, America.